This is the fifth and last Sunday of March, which has been a wonderful Women's History Month celebration. We've had 16 speakers in this month so far, speaking about various aspects of Women's History Month, which is what we ask them to do. When I say, "Would you mind speaking for Women's History Month?" someone will say, "What do you want me to speak about?" Any aspect of women's history, present, future, what it means, why it's important. Any aspect of it that you think is important, that speaks to you, that will speak to this group. We've had 16 fantastic speakers so far. So please welcome our 17th and final Women's History Month speaker. Please welcome Connie Ingber.
I don't think even if I stood up on a sidewalk, I'm tall enough. So I want to offer that, since this is Transgender Visibility Day, my daughter is trans, and when I think about it in terms of the resurrection, for my daughter, when she was finally able to face who she was and how she needed to be in the world, it was a resurrection. So I think it's actually perfect that Easter and visibility for trans people is being celebrated today. I think there's a very nice connection to be had there. Additionally, I'm going to talk to you, so I'm the closer and I'm the only speaker, but I'm not going to keep you here for an hour. I'm going to speak. Yeah, right. Is that the goal to beat? So I know last year I talked to you about nursing, and when I finished, y'all said that was a lot. And I struggle with brevity, but I'm going to give it a shot. So today I'm going to talk to you about Pauli Murray. Does anybody know who Pauli Murray is? So I was a little worried last week when the last speaker started talking about Pauli Murray, and I'm like, don't steal my thunder. This is what I've been working on all month. So I first encountered Pauli Murray as a poet. A line came from the National Women's History Museum from a poem that she wrote, and the line was, "Hope is the song in a weary throat." Let me say that one more time. Hope is the song in a weary throat. That line just leapt from the page, and yes, I cried in my heart, that's so true. And I immediately thought of our work here at Justice Southbury. When we affirm each week that we are fired up and ready to go, it's exactly what we're doing. No matter the weather, which is gorgeous today, no matter how many of us show up, we bring our hope to this spot to witness to the hope of a better future where every neighbor is loved. I believe Pauli Murray is the veritable poster child for Justice Southbury. Here's another woman who's been lost to history. You'll be amazed at the accomplishments she had in her lifetime. She wrote pivotal civil rights documents. She challenged the world again and again regarding race, sex, institutions. She worked on and on, never knowing the collective impact she was having, but being confident that action upon action was what was required of her. She clearly recognized the problems of the day, and she threw herself unceasingly against them. She was not looking for fame, but fairness, equality, and the simple right to be. In this pursuit, she became a poet, a writer, a lawyer, a teacher, and a priest. In her own biography, she never marveled at the sum of all of these accomplishments. It seems that she just offered herself humbly to the altar of life, pledging passionately to serve humankind. She wrote in a poem, "Then let the dream linger on. Let it be the test of nations. Let it be the quest of all our days. The fevered pounding of our blood, the measure of our souls, that none shall rest in any land, and none return to dreamless sleep. No heart be quieted, no tongue be stilled, until the final man may stand in any place and thrust his shoulders to the sky, friend and brother to every other man." Isn't that beautiful? She was born all the way back in 1910, and throughout her life she was ground under the heel of segregation. And since that wasn't enough of a challenge, she multiplied that challenge by being female. And she also struggled all of her life with issues of sexual identity. In the language of today, she is embraced by the transgender community as one of its shining beacons. Despite her heritage, despite the color of her skin, Despite questions she had regarding her sexual identity, she spent a lifetime actively engaging in making the world a fairer, more equitable place. I read her autobiography, and having read them, I marveled that she never gave in to despair. At least that's the way she presented it. She would have had every reason to. Her mother died in her youth, both her mother's youth and her own. Her father was imprisoned in an asylum and then beaten to death by a white man. All of her sisters and brothers were sent to live with relatives, and Pauli was sent to live with her Aunt Pauline. And then you look at her career. Before she could even begin college, she had to complete additional studies because the segregated high school that she attended only took her to 11th grade. She struggled throughout her life with poverty, even when she was educated, trying to find jobs, both being challenged by being black and being a woman. She was never halted by the barriers that were set before her. She was refused admission to the University of North Carolina based on her race. She was later refused graduate studies by Harvard as not being entitled to attend on the basis of her sex. She sat down on a bus years before Rosa Parks ever did so. She desegregated restaurants near Howard University where she obtained her law degree. Along the way, the injustices heaped upon her were too many to count, but she persisted. So when we look back through the tunnel of history, she's finally recognized for her genius. She authored pivotal documents that were used by those such as Thurgood Marshall in the Brown versus Brown Board of Education, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg used her work in Reed versus Reed in the struggle for the equality of rights. She wrote a catalog of segregation laws across the United States, which in its time became the Bible in the fight against it, and then, quickly and happily, became a historical document as change came. And I haven't even begun to scrape the beginnings, but I'm not going to keep you here all day. Her great friendship with Eleanor Roosevelt could take up a whole afternoon. Her fierce courage in the struggle to find her own sexual identity would do the same. Her loyalty to friends and her commitment to family, her final decision to leave law when she finally was practicing and actually making a decent living and pursue ministry, all of these stories are legion in and of themselves. Each describes a life lived with tenacity, bravery, and honesty, all of which make her worthy of honor this month as we recognize the unsung accomplishments of women. Last week, Leanne Browett, the eloquent history teacher that we had, spoke of the analogy of women's history being written in invisible ink. I want to take that analogy one step further. Invisible ink does not have to remain that way. Through exposure to chemical or heat, the words can be revealed again. And we are that reaction. We are here to keep hope alive. Hope in a weary throat. This is part of the poem she wrote, Dark Testament. Give me a song of hope and a world where I can sing it. Give me a song of faith and a people to believe in it. Give me a song of kindliness and a country where I can live it. Give me a song of hope and love and a brown girl's heart to hear it. And indeed, she modeled the life of working for hope. Oprah Winfrey and Arthur Brooks describe a difference between optimism and hope. And they wrote, optimism is the belief that things will turn out all right. Hope makes no such assumption, but is the conviction that one can act to make things better in some way. Hope involves personal agency, meaning it gives you a sense of power and motivation. And this hope that she championed is allowing her one additional chance to hallow the halls of history. And how, might you ask? The U.S. Mint. So apparently the U.S. Mint has a long history of being supportive to women and has been directed by women for a number of years. And they now have a campaign to immortalize women by placing them on the back of the U.S. quarter. Guess what? Pauli Murray's quarter was released this February. The initiative's been going on since 2022 and will continue till 2025. So I'm going to read you the list of the people that we have honored so far. In 2022, Maya Angelou, celebrated writer, performer, and social activist. Dr. Sally Ride, physicist and astronaut, educator, and the first American woman in space. Wilma Mankiller, the first woman elected principal chief of the Cherokee Nation. Nina Otero Warren, suffrage leader and the first woman superintendent of Santa Fe Public Schools. Anna May Wong, the first Chinese-American film star in Hollywood. In 2023, we saw Bessie Coleman, first African-American and first Native American woman licensed pilot. Edith Kanakaole, an indigenous Hawaiian composer and a custodian of Native culture and traditions. Eleanor Roosevelt, leader, reformer, first lady, and author. Jovita Aydar, Mexican-American journalist, activist, teacher, and suffragist. Maria Talchi, you think she's going to be an Indian, don't you? America's first prima ballerina. So this year, Pauli Murray joins ranks with Patsy Takemoto Mink, the first woman of color to serve in Congress. Dr. Mary Edwards Walker, a civil-era surgeon, women's rights, and dress reform advocate. Celia Cruz, a Cuban-American singer, cultural icon, and one of the most popular Latin artists of the 20th century. Zitkala Sa, writer, composer, educator, and political activist. And next year's campaign will close with Ida B. Wells, investigative journalist, suffragist, and civil rights activist. Juliette Gordon Lowe, founder of the Girl Scouts of the United States. Dr. Vera Rubin, astronomer who pioneered work on the galaxy rotation. Stacey Park Milburn, activist for people with disabilities. Althea Gibson, multi-sport athlete and the first black athlete to break the color barrier at the highest level in tennis. Appropriately, Murray's quarter has her face on it superimposed with the word hope, with the song in the weary throat on the P and the E. So I made you a bigger copy. So there's Pauli Murray, a song in a weary throat. Too small to see on the real quarter, that's why I wanted to point it out to you. The remaining detail of the quarter is the obverse side, and it deserves mention because this was one of the original designs for the quarter, and it was created by a prolific female sculptor of her time, Laura Garden Fraser, and her design was passed over at the last minute in favor of somebody by the name of John Flanagan. So, in investigating this quarter, it was a little wormhole that I fell down while I was investigating Pauli Murray, and I went to the U.S. Mint to find out when Pauli's quarter was coming out, and indeed it was just coming out. So I called the bank and said, can I have some Pauli Murray quarters? And they said, no, we don't give out change, you can only order paper money, but you can contact the Mint. So I contacted the Mint and I ordered quarters, and they said they shipped them, and they never came. And so then I called them again, and I had a lovely conversation with a woman at the Mint whose daughters collect all of these quarters. And there we did find that I finally got the quarters in time for today. And progress is slow, but I keep an emergency collection of change in my car just in case I leave for work and need my cup of coffee on the way and forget my wallet, which has happened a time or two. So in that group of change, I had 16 quarters. 3 of them were women's quarters. So my husband, who is much better at math than I am, said that's about 20%. So again, like all of the change we see, that when we see the depth of change we want made, it's such a long distance away, but we get there by bits and bits. So the women are out there and becoming more prolific every year. So today, I brought a quarter for each of you, so that you may both leave this corner and return to this corner with hope in your pocket, and also with the charge that we must continue the work of Reverend Dr. Pauli Murray until justice for all is the rule of the land. As Pauli said, I speak for my race and my people, the human race and just people. Thank you.